old people. Now, if you're not shivering in your britches hearing those words, maybe you should be. And the truth is I don't have anything against people who are aged and have lived past a certain age. However, there's something that I've grown to learn as a young adult, and it's just that sometimes people from the older generation like to yell and scream and get angry. So this was an incident that happened a couple days ago where it was the 4th of July. We're having a good time, and man, some older people came and yelled up a storm. And man, I'll just kind of explain what happened. So we had a couple boats out on the lake, and we're having a really good time. We tied them all together, and in doing that, we brought a John boat out so we could pick people up from the dock and bring them to the lake. Just kind of a plain and simple thing, just so we didn't have to take one of the boats, untie, and go through all of that whole shebang. Well, in doing this, we had to put kind of an unregistered boat on the water, and it was just going to be there for the day, just so we could go in and get all that stuff taken care of and handled. And the fee for registering a boat's like $60, so we would have paid it, but we didn't want to go through all of that just so we could do that. Knowing this, yes, I understand. I am in the wrong in that scenario, and I'm in the wrong in that situation. So anyways, our lake, it's a really small lake, and we have plenty of people out on it. There was probably 60 boats out, and the John boat that we were using had no lights, which is fine. That's understandable. I understand if that is an incorrect thing. We were doing the incorrect thing there, and I'm not saying that we weren't. However, so in doing this, we sent a John boat out so it could drop off some people on the dock because they needed to go home for the night. And in coming back, they stopped to watch the fireworks probably 40 feet, 50 feet away from our boat. So in doing that, they keep their lights off, or they have no lights, so they're just watching the fireworks and having a good time. And these old people, these bags, these people that just like to kind of control things and keep things in control, come up, and they're like shining the flashlight on the John boat. So we're like, I stand up, and I kind of understand, and I know that something's gonna come up of this. And I was like, all right, well, something's gonna happen. So I stand up, and I see them shining the flashlight, and then all of a sudden they shine the flashlight at me. And I was like, all right, well, they're gonna come over. And through that scenario, I was like, okay, they'll come over, I know there's I know we're doing something wrong, but hopefully they come over. Well, they come over, and their first words out of their mouth were, "You're done for, buddy." In which I'm like, okay. They're like, "You're going to lose your privileges on this lake. Everyone on that boat with privileges is going to lose their privileges on this lake." And by the way, they are screaming. They're not like yelling. They're not talking with authority. They are screaming at the top of their lungs during the 4th of July fireworks show and during all this. Now, in that, they're like, "We told them 5 times, screaming, absolutely losing their minds." Now, I don't mind, being told what to do. If you're, older and you come up to me and you're like, "Hey, I understand if you're trying to have fun, but it's really dangerous out here to have that boat without lights on it. We just needed you to hook it up. And if you can do that, that would be great." Awesome. I'd love to do that, But you come up and they're like, 5 times. We've told them to put lights on that boat, or hook it up to your boat. And they're just not listening. You know, they didn't say anything. There was no conversation, nothing, just screaming. That being said, I feel like there's this big problem with the older generation where they immediately think that they have the right to just yell at anybody and start screaming. So what I said back to them was, hey, you know, what's the problem? Why are you screaming in my face? And they're like, 5 times. I was like, hey, I'll fix it. Like, I'll get them to tie the boat up. I understand that. But I don't need you to be screaming in my face. That's not solving anything. You know, you're just yelling and you're just making people mad. And they're like, I don't care what you think. And they start yelling at my friend. They're like, we don't need an argument out of you guys. Like, we need you to just do it. I understand that, you know. But maybe, just maybe, if you asked in a nicer tone and you didn't treat me like a dog, I would have done that. So, you know, in all of this, I'm just kind of saying, like, old people, let's have a realization, like, hey, I understand, you know, if I'm ever in the wrong, I'm in the wrong. And I get that. Most of the time, I will come out and be like, hey, I know I'm in the wrong. I'm not trying to do anything wrong here. I'm just trying to get this point across. I'm just trying to get this right. And I'm sorry if I made it wrong. I never will raise my voice or raise my tone to a point that is super excessive and super annoying and really getting in your face and trying to prove it wrong. So that being said, like, I'm shouting out to the older generation just because I feel like, you know, we're having this big disconnect and this big problem, and let's start changing our ways and moving towards a better place. You know, we're just having fun. And yeah, the boat was in the wrong, but they're like 40 feet away from my boat. Not really causing trouble because the fireworks were going. They were just sitting still, and you're putting their flashlight on them and kind of treating them like crap. I understand, you know, we're breaking rules. There's a couple rules that are broken, but you coming up and immediately yelling that you're going to take my privileges and like you and having this authority, and you're like, hey, I'm the lake manager. That's what they said. They're like, I'm the lake manager. I understand that. I've also lived on this lake for 23 years. You know, before 5 years ago, we didn't have a lake manager. Our lake management process was if you were stupid, you got hurt. And that's kind of the rule. I love that, you know. I love those rules where it's if you're stupid and you get hurt, it's on you. That's the liability process. That's everything about it. So, you know, when it comes to these new systems we put into everything and this babying we do with everything, you know, let's kind of lean away from that. I don't like leaning into that stuff, and I think that stuff is excessive, and it causes people to kind of be babied through their lives, and by the time they grow up, they don't really learn the things they need to learn, you know. So there's that. So yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.